Times J. Newton Small joins me now to discuss all of the legislation that's been proposed in the last week or so to protect members of the House. And there's a lot of it, Jay.
There is, and some of the ideas I think are probably have a little bit more traction than others. But you know, for example, I don't know that that Robert Brady's idea of banning any kind of violent symbols around members of Congress or federal officials, that I think actually might violate the First Amendment, freedom of speech.
I was going to say that kind of gets into the speech regulation, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. But there are some ones that probably have a little bit more credibility than others. Dan, for example, well, I don't know about this one, but Dan Burton's idea of walling off the gallery of Congress with a plexiglass kind of almost like you were saying a hockey rink divide, which would
put this in. He wants to put it in front of the galleries.
In front of the galleries.
So you'd look up in the House and there'd be this plexiglass around the galleries.
Yes, which apparently he got the idea from England. In the British Parliament, they have that to prevent people from, even though they don't. It's very difficult to have arms in England. They have that in order to protect the members. I think from maybe people throwing things at them, like vegetables or whatever. But
But as Representative Gohmert points out, you have to go through several levels of security to get to the House galleries anyway.
Exactly, and my idea is I think they should pass them both so that if you have the plexiglass and then you've got the members on the floor who are armed, the only people they can shoot is each other.
And you won't be endangered in the gallery.
Exactly.
Seriously, what are the chances that either one of those could pass the House?
Honestly, there's little chance that any of these ideas could pass the House. There's just not a real will to change the Second Amendment sort of detente that has evolved, with the National Rifle Association and Democrats over the years, and there also isn't a lot of appetite to change the First Amendment and to limit freedom of speech. But what they are doing and what they're going to continue to do is to take these threats a little bit more seriously. You've seen a spate of arrests in the past week of people who are threatening members, and to have the FBI spend a little bit more time investigating these threats and these people who have sent letters and threatening phone calls.
But a lot of members of Congress have spoken up about this. I mean, the basic question here is, how in the world do you keep people whose job it is to stay in touch with their constituents away from the constituents?
Well, that's just it. I mean, honestly, 99.9% of the time, these guys are out there, and things like this do not happen. That's why it's such a huge news story for us that this has actually happened, because it almost never happens. But it is their job to be out amongst their constituents. I mean, in last summer, I think was the closest we've ever come to seeing people pull back from their constituents. Some Democrats, after the sort of summer town hall, rages over healthcare reform, started to do video town halls and virtual town halls instead of ones in person. But really, I mean, it's your job to be out there, and if you're not going to be out there, you're not going to get reelected, because you won't be talking and servicing the people that you're supposed to represent.
Well, here's another idea from Representative Peter King from Long Island, who wants to ban the possession of weapons within 1,000 feet of a federal official.
Well, that's, again, it's not exactly preventative, because by the time somebody's got a gun within 1,000 feet of you who wants to cause you ill will, you're already in trouble, and that's probably not going to stop this, anything from happening, because there just aren't police at these events to enforce these kinds of laws. What it would do if it passed, which it probably won't, is to add an extra charge to the gunman's attempted, whatever it is, malfeasance that he's tried to do, whether he's tried to kill you or other members. But honestly, I mean, the police are not at any of these events. There just aren't enough police to do that kind of work, frankly. I mean, these guys are out there doing 4 or 5 events a day. To do a 24/7 detail takes 4 or 5, policemen or Secret Service members traveling constantly with that member, and it's incredibly expensive.
So what's your prediction for all of this legislation that has cropped up and there's likely to be more in the wake of what happened in Tucson?
Absolutely, but I just don't see anything passing at this point. There's just no way to change security around members, and there's no way to really change fundamentally how members interact with the people. The only thing you can do, and this isn't going to involve legislation, is just be a little bit more vigilant about checking in on threats.
Time Magazine's J. Newton Small, thank you very much for being with us.